Hi, it's Jim from Krazydad. Today we're going to solve a train tracks puzzle. It's got train tracks on it. The tracks come in from the left, they wind around the grid, they don't cross each other, they don't touch each other, and eventually they come out. This puzzle uses Hamiltonian circuit strategy, which I've covered a bit in the vermicelli video, and we'll cover it more here. It's a little more complicated than vermicelli. Here's a vermicelli puzzle. In vermicelli, the clues are given by these boundaries, and you make little worms, very cute worms. It's really a cuter puzzle, but it's also an easier puzzle. In tracks, on the other hand, things are a little more complicated because of the entrance and the exit, which complicate things a little bit, and there are more strategies, and the harder puzzles are definitely harder than vermicelli. I first encountered the tracks puzzle or train tracks puzzle at Simon Tatham's Portable Puzzle Collection. This is a great website. It's been around for even longer than mine. It has tons of puzzles on it. There is source code available for the puzzles if you're into that kind of thing. And they can be solved on several different platforms. And there are some mobile apps that make use of these puzzles as well that are out there. Simon has a great version of the tracks puzzle, and like I said, that's where I first encountered it. My version of the puzzle runs a little harder than Simon's does. I use some additional strategies that aren't present in this version of the puzzle. In general, I think this puzzle is more popular in the UK. Simon is a UK-based puzzle constructor, probably helped popularize it. And it has run in several media publications in the UK. I've sold a tracks puzzle to the Radio Times, which is a UK publication. So a great place in general for puzzles. Definitely want to give Simon a shout out. Check out his collection. It's awesome. You may be wondering where to find this puzzle on my website. Here's the website. Basically, you can scroll down and find it. If you hit spatial reasoning, it'll come up a bit faster because there's fewer of those spatial reasoning puzzles on the site. Train tracks is right here. When spatial reasoning is selected, vermicelli is here. If you turn off spatial reasoning, just have the default view. They're a little further down. There's train tracks, there's vermicelli. In addition to the interactive puzzles, which we'll be solving in this video, I also have a page of printable train tracks puzzles that you can download. They're available in several sizes. In general, the large ones are significantly harder than the small ones. The 4x4s are trivially easy, good for kids. If you're new to these puzzles, I would suggest starting on the 5s or the 6s and work your way up to these. These get quite hard, especially when you get up to past book 30 or so. There are 2 volumes of most of the sizes. I only did 1 volume to the beginner because you'll graduate to the easies pretty quick. Each size is organized into 2 volumes at the moment. If there's more demand, I'll make more. Each volume has 100 so-called booklets really. And you select a book, you get a link, and there's the PDF that you can download or print. Here's a train tracks puzzle. I'm going to show the solution to this one so I can explain how the clues work. 2 here means that there are 2 squares on this row that have a train track segment, 1 square on this row, etc. I often use the green marker down here to light up the tiles that I know contain train tracks. And I use red to indicate tiles that don't. You can also use the X tool to indicate crossings that you know that the train track can't cross. It's kind of obvious on a finished puzzle, isn't it? So let's solve one from scratch. I'll often start by just using the green tool and painting in the cells that I know have to be used. These 5s indicate that these rows are completely filled with tracks. So is this one. So is this column. This cell has a track in it. We now know that there must be a gap here because of the 4. There's a gap here because of the 3. And I think we pretty much know where all the train tracks go. You can pretty much completely solve the easy puzzles just using the green and red squares. This corner piece only has 1 entrance and 1 exit, so the track must go that way. And you can do that with every piece that only has 2 options. This is a straight here, corner, corner, And the puzzle's solved. Not too hard. Now, if that puzzle seems super easy, you should know that I have even easier ones, which are good for working with kids. And those are the 4x4 beginner puzzles. Very easy. Let's do one that's slightly harder, and then I'll do an advanced puzzle. So I'm going to do a 6x6. Here we go. Again, I'm going to paint where I know there are tracks. So we've got the 6 here, 6 here. The 3 is completed. That 3 is completed on that column. This 2 is now complete. This 2 is now complete. So we already have a good chunk of track here. We know that this corner is going to go like that. This 2 is complete. This 1 is complete. This 1 is complete. So the 4 must be completed like so. We have some forced corners, and the puzzle's complete. Pretty simple. Well, it gets much harder. So what I'm going to do now is find a more advanced puzzle. One thing that you should know is that for every volume, there are 100 books, and the puzzles in book 100 will definitely be harder than the puzzles in book 1. But also, the larger puzzles are harder than the smaller puzzles. So we're going to do a 14 by 10 from book, I don't know, 51, maybe puzzle 11. As you can see, things are harder right away in that we don't have any clues that give away an entire column or row except for this one. This is a 14 by 10 puzzle. I know that because I can count, but also because it says so right here. So the first thing I'm going to do is just mark cells that I know are in use. After marking those up, I'm going to add my little track ends by clicking on near the edges of the tracks here. When there are 2 track ends, it'll go ahead and fill in the rest of the track piece. Okay, I see something interesting in the corner here, which is that if this track piece were to go down, it would eventually beat up over here. That would be the only way to get out. And it would make a little sub loop, which we can't have. So this has to go up, and this has to go that way. As I add new track pieces, I'll color it in. I can now start eliminating cells on this 5 column that I know aren't in use. Obviously, these 4 cells aren't in use. We can't get out of this space. And you'll notice that we have 4 out of our 5 track pieces in this column. And a huge part of train track strategy involves exploiting columns or rows that have all but one of their pieces. When that happens, we can use the X's to eliminate crossings that would force 2 additional track pieces to be used. Because if I were to come into this square or cell, I would have to go down and we would end up using 6 squares. That can't happen. Because this square is now inaccessible, we can rule it out. Same with this one. So the only available cell is this one. And this other 5 column is now complete. Okay, down here, I see we have some interesting things going on. There's a little crowding. I'm imagining what would happen if this piece were to go down like that. I'll go ahead and mark it in. I don't think this is a legal move, and it's probably going to show up red. Yes, it's showing up red because I have auto check answers turned on. Why is this not a legal move? Because look at what happens here. We have 3 incoming pieces. If we were to connect these 2 pieces, this one would be stuck. It would be in a dead end. If we were to connect these 2 pieces, this one would be stuck. These 2 pieces, this one is stuck. So when there's 3 pieces all going into an enclosed area, that's a problem. So I know that this piece can't go down like that. So instead, it must go like here. This goes down. And then this can resolve in one of 2 ways. We don't know which. It can connect here, this can connect there, or it could go like that. Remember how I mentioned that when a column or row has all but one of its pieces filled in, we can exploit that. That situation is currently happening with this column, which is clued 6. It has 5 of its pieces. We can't use any of these crossings, and I can mark them out. That would force 2 additional cells to be added, because that would blow out our 6. There's a somewhat counterintuitive strategy, which is sort of the opposite of what I just did. It involves rows like this one. This row, we've already ruled out 2 cells. There's 14 cells in total, so there's only going to be 1 more red cell in this row, and then the rest are going to be used. We can rule out or rule in cells which, if they were red, would cause an additional red cell to occur, because that would, again, screw up our count. I can see that if this cell were unused, it would prevent us from using this cell. And then it wouldn't be an 11, it would be a 10. So this cell must be used. I see we have a force over here. Finally. I see something interesting with these 2 columns that are clued 2. In general, when you have 2 columns on the end like this that are clued 2, what's going to happen, you're going to have something like this, where a piece comes in and then goes out. So on the end, it's always going to be a curve like this, and then these are going to be straights. It can't be anything else, because if it were something like this, then it would be 3 instead of 2. So it's got to be something like this, which also means that the cells that are used in this column are going to be right next to the cells that are used in this column. Now, imagine that these aren't the cells. If that happens, we blow out our 11s. We can only do 10s in these 2 bottom rows. That can't be the case. And that means that our 2s are right here. This one can't connect up because it makes a subloop, so it keeps going that way. And now we've finished our 2s, and we can go ahead and eliminate the rest of those. This 12 row now has the 2 cells accounted for that are not used, so we can mark the rest of those. Okay, in this row, which sums to 8, I already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cells. I need to pick up 2 more, and then we're done. Now I can see that I have a cell here where the track segments must come in the left and go out the right. If I were to use this as a track piece, it would force the track piece to use up 3 additional cells, which is too many for the 8. And that means we can eliminate that cell. Now this 9 row only has 1 unused cell. If I were to not use this cell, it would create a situation like this, where I couldn't use this cell. And that would be a problem. So it must be used. I can see in the corner now that that extends out, which extends this out 1 further. This must be our unused cell, remaining unused cell for the 11. We can go ahead and finish that corner. This is the remaining unused cell for this 11. And now we can do a little more track here. This 8 row now has 7 of its track pieces, 7 out of 8. That means when that happens, we can eliminate boundaries between pairs of unused cells. Red cells always have X's around all four sides. Again, if this cell were unused, it would force this cell to be unused, and we can only have one unused cell in this column. So this cell must be used. I just noticed in column 3, we are close to full. There's going to be one more green cell. That means we can eliminate this crossing here. Because if it were in use, we'd be adding 2 cells, not 1. Okay, going back down to this 8 column, I see that it has 1 red cell. It can only pick up 1 more red cell. If this cell was red, it would prevent us from using the one below it, which is 1 red cell too many. So this cell must be green. Okay, I just noticed something about this row, which is clued 8. It already has 7 of its cells. There can be only 1 more. This track segment can either connect here or the 2 can go up. But if the 2 go up, it would add 2 cells to the 8, which is a problem. So we can go ahead and connect that. These cells are unused, which makes these cells unused. Because we've eliminated this red cell, that's the only red cell in this column, which is clued 9, we can go ahead and mark the rest of that column used. That means we've got a track segment going like this, and we can fill in a good bit up here. I see now that this column that is clued 6 is done. I'll add the green. We now have 6 out of the 7 track segments on this row, so I can rule out the internal crossing. I can see that there's a track segment here that must use either the left or the right edge, which is going to use up an additional extra cell on that row. And since we're already up to 6, that's going to be our 7th. So we can rule out the other areas on that row, knowing that we're either going to go like that or like that. No, we're not going to go like that. We have to go down. And then we're just going to go like that, or we're going to go like that. That comes down. That goes down. On this column includes 7. There is only 1 additional red square. It can't be this one because that would prevent us from using the cell below it. So that must be green. Think the same situation here. If this were red, it would prevent us from using 3 of these edges. So that must also be green. This cell is forced because if it were red, it would make this one red, and there can only be 1 red in this column. Okay, this row, which is clued 9, has 8 of its green cells, so we can eliminate internal boundaries. Okay, now here's a fun bit of strategy. Take a look at this line between the 9 and the 6 going down, separating these columns. You'll see that there's 1, 2, 3 track crossings. Now, I know, because of math, that there must be 4 track crossings. Why is that? Let's take a look at the blackboard and see why that is so. So here we are at the blackboard, and imagine that we have a train tracks puzzle, and it's got an entry and an exit, and the track is moving around in various ways, and eventually hits the exit. Now, keeping the entry and the exit on the same side of the line, let's just draw a line through it. You'll notice that the number of crossings on the line is an even number. In this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you'll find that you can't create a line that stays on the same side of the entry and the exit that does not have an even number of crossings. Let's do it backwards and see why. If I just draw the line and then draw the path, I can not touch the line. That's a 0. I can cross once. That's 2. I can cross once, double back, and then come back. And notice how every time I double back, I'm adding 2 crossings. So we start with 2 crossings, and then we just keep adding 2. So it's always an even number, no matter how many times I double back. And by the way, this doesn't have to be a line. It could also be a shape like this. It's still going to be an even number of crossings. Come into, come out of it, come into, cross it, come out of it. If you look at the edge of the shape, it's always going to be an even number. The situation is different, however, when there's a line that has the entry and the exit on opposite sides of it. In that case, there's at minimum going to be 1 crossing because we have to somehow get from the entry to the exit. And then as we double back, we keep adding 2, like before. That's 1, 2, 3. So it's 1, 3, 5. It's an odd number. So when you're using this principle, keep track of where the entry and the exit are relative to your line or boundary where you're doing crossing counts on. If the entry and the exit are on the same side, it'll be even. And if they are on opposite sides, it'll be odd. Now let's go back to the puzzle. Now that we're back for the chalkboard, we know that this line must have an even number of crossings. There's only one remaining place where we can make that crossing, and it's right here. So let's make it. That forces this cell. And now look, we have all 9 pieces of this row that is clued 9. So we can go ahead and rule out the rest. And now we can make some progress. Got a corner here, needs to be filled in. That comes out like that. This 8 has its 2 red cells now. So this can be completed. This is now a dead end. We can complete our 7. This cell must be used, but it can't be both of these edges because that would make a subcircuit. So that must be used. If this cell goes down, it either goes up and makes a subcircuit, or it goes down and this guy's in a dead end. So that must go up. Now this is a dead end. That goes down. That goes down. This cell only has 1 set of options. We're using this. That completes our 10. I think we have all 8. Here. This corner goes like that. This corner goes like this. This cell must be used because we've already ruled out that one. And it is completed this way. There's the remaining unused cell in R11. This piece of track can't cross this way because it makes a subloop, a big giant one. So it goes down. This goes up. This crosses. This cell here in column 8 must be green. If it's red, it would prevent us from using this cell. Let's examine why. Because the only way we'd be able to use this cell is to close this little subcircuit, and that would be bad. So this must be green. Looking up here, we have a cell that must be used. 2 of its edges are going to be used. I don't think it can be these 2, maybe one of them, definitely one of them. It can't be both because that would cause this track to make a little circle. So the track must be going down like this. We pick up an extra cell here. That's all 7 of our 7s. Both of these can't be used, so there's a track segment coming in this way. This cell in our 9 row is unused. Last one left. And now we're going to make some good progress. This 8 row can be finished out this way. The path of this track segment is forced, can't cross here, so it must go down. This crosses, can't cross here, make a subloop, so it goes like that, and the puzzle's done. I hope you learned a bit from this tracks puzzle. See you again soon.